we go live into the main discussion of the day. Thank you very much, Julius, for that. We'll definitely
Thank you so much.
Pick your mind onto that. I'd like to welcome Dr. Stella Nyanzi and Karim Ntambi, and also like to welcome Safina Nakaiza. Safina has already hinted to me that in Uganda there is a complete and total power outage. So she's in the dark. She won't be able to use her video, but we would like to welcome you. I'll give Dr. Stella Nyanzi and Safina and then Karim each a minute to do yourself justice and introduce yourself the best way that you want people to know you. Dr. Stella Nyanzi, please.
Right. Thank you very much, Ishmael. Am I clear?
Yes, you are.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Right. Hi, Karim. Hi, Musao Nakaiza. That's the name that I see. My name is Stella Nyanzi. I'm a woman, Ugandan, Muganda, currently living in exile in Kenya. I came to Kenya at the end of January of this year. I am delighted to be here, especially because in conversations around human rights violations with a specific emphasis on torture and the kidnaps, I think that some voices are being left out, and so I'm glad to be included in this conversation. Thank you, Ishmael.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stella, and thank you for making the time.
Please call me Stella. Please call me Stella. Just drop the doctor, if that's
thank
okay.
you. Oh, it was tiring me out. Thank you, Stella, for that.
Sure.
Musao Nakaiza, Safina, please introduce yourself the best way that you can, please. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, moderator, and thank you for having given all of us this opportunity to be on this platform. I'm very happy to be here, and I welcome everyone watching and viewing from wherever they are. I can't be seen right now. I can only be heard because we have a total power outage in Uganda right now. But thanks for having us.
Thank you. And thank you for taking the time as well, even with the current situation that Uganda is going through. Karim Ntambi, please, I know you have already done this before, but for purposes of Stella and Safina, please reintroduce yourself. Karim?
Oh, am I muted? Sorry, I was muted. So, hi, Stella. Hi, Safina. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Karim Tambi. I am an activist here in Washington, D.C. I am also one of the representatives for the NUP People Power Diaspora. Thank you so much for joining this conversation on human rights violations in Uganda.
Thank you. We'll jump into the discussion. I know, Stella, you joined us a little bit earlier and you listened in and you watched what we're talking about. I would like you to give us your 2 cents on our topic: human rights crisis in Uganda, torture, kidnap, and the state. I know, as a person who has been arrested before, who has been thrown into a jail, this is a topic that really, really, really hits home for you. So please go ahead, Stella.
Right, so you have to stop me because I'm very passionate about the abuse of human rights violations. 2 minutes.
Don't worry about it.
You're welcome. Bang on the table or do whatever you have to do to indicate that I stop, because I can't stop talking enough about this topic. I was lucky I came 30 minutes because I have technical challenges with software. I usually log in 30 minutes and get lost and find my way before session start. And so I was privileged to listen to Harriet Nanyonga, and I think it was Julius Kakoza and Karim Tambi, talking particularly about the role of the diaspora. Now, I think that one of my perhaps quick challenges or feedback to that conversation is the homogenization of diaspora. There are different sorts of people in diaspora. I'm in exile, right? And I think that when Harriet said that we are in better positions because we are outside the country to speak about these issues that dictator Museveni is imposing on Ugandans, that this is not true for all of us, right? Caution must be taken when we are calling on people to join the struggle, because some of us, I like what Karim said about agents being paid by Yoweri Museveni, the thief who's stealing from our public purse. So the sort of agents that we have working for the dictatorship in Kenya are criminals who hunt us down, and they threaten our lives, and they threaten to go back to our families if we speak out and call out the dictator and the dictatorship.
Stella,
for the tortures they
Stella,
are.
I've heard something
Yes.
you said. Have you been threatened? Have you been hunted down?
Threats are ongoing, but perhaps because I have a big mouth, there is protection in articulation, right? My issues have been all over the world. I'm one of the people who signs petitions almost every week around Uganda. The boldness and fearlessness with which I approach the dictatorship is a cover for me. That you don't just disappear me, you don't just threaten me, I will expose you, right? But there are very many other Ugandans, particularly young men and women from Nuuk, who are with me in Nairobi, in Kenya, in different, some are in settlement camps, some are recent arrivals. And the level of intimidation and threat, right, when people testify, cannot be undermined. And so not all of us are necessarily really in safe spaces where speaking out does not expose us to further danger. Ugandans have been forcefully taken back from Kenya to Uganda. Ugandans have sometimes just been disappeared. So if the enforced disappearances are happening at home, I think it is easier for them to happen for people in exile in the nearby environs, because when you disappear, nobody knows where you are. People at home do not know where a number of recent exilees are. Okay, and so when they're disappeared from the streets of Nairobi or the margins and the slum areas where many are in hiding if they haven't registered themselves and declared asylum seeking and protection, then nobody knows they've been disappeared, right? So exile is different for different people. Vancouver Cheyo in Dubai and, you know, Qatar and wherever else may not have the same protection as same others. And so we shouldn't homogenize our roles and assume safety is universal to all of us in diaspora. That's the first thing I wanted to say. I mean, I think the second thing is that for many people, articulation and amplifying the role, which I think is important in terms of diaspora, is very empowering. For some others, their families get mad. I know some students in diaspora who are on a panel where we were talking about the same topic of abductions and torture, and one of them, his family was visited the very same week, less than 7 days after the panel. His family was visited by plainclothes intelligentsia, and a little while later, 2 of his sisters were summoned to a police station to give statements about the whereabouts of their brother and questions about how he and other students in diaspora where he is based are funding or fanning a flame insurgency. So it's sometimes it's risky. There's a danger to doing the sort of things we are calling people to do. But having said that, we must keep resisting. I think that the beauty of what the people who were discussing before said is, particularly for people for whom it's safe, it's not an endanger to their lives, it's not endangering anything in what they do. They have the protection. Expatriates, people who have some level of immunity, people with foreign or diplomatic passes, or even citizens with dual citizenship who will not be threatened because when they come home, things happen. Those people should speak out if they can speak out, right? So that's my 2 cents on the sort of conversation I found. And there are other issues I hope we'll get into when the others as we progress in the next 1 hour.
All
Is that
right.
okay?
Yes, but you haven't talked about the torture, though, in Uganda and the kidnapping.
Right. So I thought you asked me to give quick feedback on the preceding conversation, which is what I did.
Okay.
About the tortures and the kidnapping. So how many more seconds are you giving me?
I'll give you 1 more minute.
1 more minute. So look, people, I know that.
And again, and the reason why this I'm insisting for you to say something, because you have I watched you undress yourself. I watched you being harassed on the streets of Kampala. I watched. So you have lived the torture. You have lived the threat of the state. So we need to hear from you about the torture and the kidnapping, vis-a-vis what you went through.
So one of the delights of participating in this conversation, I think, is that many times those of us who have experienced torture or kidnap or even abduction are left out of the conversation. Many of us don't speak English, but also many of us are scared. Our tongues have been pulled out by the torture. I was kidnapped in 2017. So part of my quick feedback to the sort of conversations that are happening currently is that the narrative, the rhetoric, the discourse, the panels, the seminars, the workshops, the press media releases are very heavily dependent on the current moment, on 2020, from about November to yesterday, 2020, 2021. And we forget the history of these abductions. They are not new, right? That's the first thing. There are conversations many times are historicized. And so when Karim mentioned Mukura, or was it Kasese, one of the earlier massacres where Ugandans were butchered and there was bloodshed, that's important, that we historicize the conversation. If we make it about today, then the idea, the notion of silence is reduced, because people say it's just too early, it's too fresh. Actually, no. Yoweri Museveni has been butchering Ugandans for a long time using state agents. That's the first beat, that we have to historicize. We have to put the current tortures and abductions and murders and torture during interrogation within a historical frame. There's a history to this, right? And maybe in doing that sort of comparative history, we then have to see what are the differences that this moment throws up. The second sort of thing coming from that for me is a critique of how the conversation is dominantly about NUP. Now, I belong to FDC. There's a lady who contributed and she said she voted for Robert Chagulanyi as president, and I salute her and every other NUP member and people who voted for Robert Chagulanyi. For those of us in the opposition who voted for alternatives, because there were alternatives away from Yoweri Museveni, out of 11 contestants, only Yoweri Museveni was the NRM regime dominant person. I voted for Patrick Oboya-Muriat, and it's not a shame for me. It's a democratic choice I exercise. It's a constitutional choice I exercise. The conversation about tortures and kidnaps has been very narrowly, the space has been opened up for NUP people. And I understand the progress about software and applications and social media and the internet in the NUP, right? I celebrate that. I think the conversation has to be broadened. When I was abducted, I was a member of FDC. Several other FDC members have been abducted, have been tortured. Some have returned to us with wounded bodies. Some have never returned to us. Some have returned to us with broken balls, bashed balls, castrated, emasculated. Some have returned empowered to go on. And so the narrative has to broaden to include the range of political parties that are involved, right? I know some
Stella,
non-partisan Ugandans.
I would want you to hold your thought on that about parties contributing, and also I'd like to say that online there's a very big or diverse contribution by the different parties. It's very rare for me. I haven't seen different
I don't
parties
agree.
contributing, but I'll bring you back to that. I would like to bring in Safina
Okay.
Musa Safina Nakaiza to give us her 2 cents on our topic. Safina, please. I know as a person who is very, very vocal, you're very vocal online, and you have you're very pro-change activist. So what's your 2 cents on the topic that we have today? Torture, kidnap, and the state.
Thank you so much, Ismail. I haven't been an activist for a long time, so I'm not speaking as an expert. I'm just speaking as someone who sees things the way they are. The ongoing kidnappings and tortures in Uganda, they generally encompass NUP. I respect what Dr. Stella is saying, but these recent murders, the murders that are making it to the news, the names of the people we see coming forward, family members asking for their families. They are generally people asking for people power / NUP supporters. These are the people who have been affected the most in this election cycle. These are the people who have been imprisoned the most in this recent election cycle. And I understand what Dr. Stella is saying, and I don't disagree. But I think why people are generally speaking about NUP is because right now in every district, there has to be at least a NUP supporter who has gone missing or a NUP supporter who has died because of election violence and all that. As far as Obongi, as far as Terego, everywhere. So it's generally a problem that NUP supporters and people power are facing. People have been abducted for wearing red berets and sent to military courts over that. People have been abducted for wearing people power t-shirts. People have been abducted for simply wearing anything red in relation to people power. So I don't disagree with what Dr. Stella is saying, that people are mainly dwelling on the recent, what's happening right now, and they are forgetting about some of the past kidnappings by the dictatorship, because it's true, it's not a new trend, but where it's at right now, it's mostly NUP supporters, the polling agents, the councillors, elected councillors. It's generally NUP. So yeah, that's all I'll have to say for now.
Thank you very much, Safina. I think from what I heard you and Dr. Stella, what you were saying was, it's generally Ugandans that are kidnapped. It's Ugandans that are tortured. It doesn't matter if you're from Kabong or Mbarara or Kotido. It doesn't matter if you belong to FDC or NRM. I know there are some, even NRM people that were beaten up. It's how can we move forward from this torture? How can we just say, okay, 2017 happened, we watched and then it stopped. 2021 has happened, we watch and then it stopped. 2020, what will happen in 2026? So Karim, this is where I want you to jump in. What's your 2 cents on the current torture, kidnaps, and what the state is doing to the Ugandans? And I'm saying Ugandans, I'm trying to avoid partilization, if that word exists, of the torture and the kidnap. Karim, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Stella and Safina, for those remarks. I think we take away from what our people are really going through in hospitals when we personalize, or when we make torture and kidnap partisan. Because what happens is, it is going to become an issue of, okay, Karim was tortured. Oh, he said, no, I don't need to speak out on him. Oh, Sarah was tortured. Oh, she's FDC. I don't need to speak out. They let the FDC. And while we are doing that, we are opening a door for the dictator to continue doing this. I think torture should be recognized. If a person like Masudi has been shot into the jaw, is Masudi first before he wears a red beret. But if we start, this is an issue for this party, this is an issue for the other party. Generally, when it comes to human rights, we have to recognize them as a whole. So what has been happening in Uganda, it has been going on for so long. But recently, these have been really targeted abductions and kidnaps. And you have over 129 campaigns staffers jailed at the same day. We cannot look out. We cannot look away and play whataboutism. What about it? We can't do that. We have to call it for what it is. That when they targeted 129, actually those ones supporters, when they came and raided people's homes, those ones supporters. I really agree. We have people like Comrade. Before we even had people, before we even had no as a party, there were so many people who suffered torture. Comrade Atiku, still having back pain. He was a supporter of the Honorable, who is still nothing gone. We've had people who have been killed in different places of the country, and not necessarily because they're wearing red or blue, but because this is what the regime does. If you look at what is going on in different parts of the country, let us leave around the political kind of human rights, targeted political human rights. Let us look at it on a wider perspective. When we bring in issues like what happened in Rotanja or what happened in Apa, not even what happened, what is going on right now in Apa, where these army generals would just come and pick up people on their land that they have been occupying so long. So in a place like Apa, if we personalize that, or if we put a party onto the suffrage of people in a certain area, it will make others comfortable not to speak out. But if we bring the issue in general, if we bring an issue in general, I mean, it makes it easier for us to have human rights abuses as a collective burden for each one of us to speak out on. One thing I'm not seeing in the diaspora, much as people shoot punches here and there, there hasn't been, I think there hasn't been other opposition parties speaking out from the diaspora. Like you wouldn't find different parties besides NUP in the diaspora that are working, and that poses a challenge. Makes it look like, okay, it's a NUP issue, yet we have different stakeholders in this. So if people are truly fighting for this, even in the diaspora, stand up and speak out if you are, let's say, stand up and speak up if you are, and if you are not standing up and you're only giving the platform for us as NUP to speak out, yeah, we are going to speak out, and we are going to make sure that we put the light onto our people, the people that we know that support our cause, that are being abducted, that are being killed. And it's going to be very hard for somebody in the diaspora who hasn't seen another person in the diaspora of a different party to speak up on their behalf. So I think that's where the challenge is. But I also recognize that there has been torture and abduction within the other, opposition.
Yep. Thank you very much, Karim, for that. And the last couple of weeks, we're honored to have MP Nicholas Nenas from the European Parliament. We're honored to have Karim from the Human Rights Watch. We have been honored to have a couple of people, and one of the things that stand out in terms of human rights watch that has been hinted on, and I want to bring in Stella at this point, is what just like the three of you have stated, they have been going on for a long time. But who do we make accountable? Because 2017 happened, like you said, 2016 happened, I remember there was walk to work, and then there was Kabaka's something, people kept on disappearing. Now it's 2021. How do we bring the dictatorship to be accountable? And how does this play into the change that we want? Is it just a matter of numbers? Because every time somebody is kidnapped, are we just adding on to the numbers that we have? Stella, please.
Right. So just to say again that for me as a Ugandan, right, whose heart beats for Uganda, the discussion has to be about Uganda. We have to go beyond our partisan divides. That's the first thing. It's not a competition about which party is suffering it more. But then I want to talk about the femicides that happened in 2018. Women of all trade were getting abducted, kidnapped, ransom was asked for, and then they were thrown along the streets of very close to State House, but Nansana and other environs of Wakiso and Kampala, a bit of Mpigi as well. And in that moment, it was about women, okay, or women of disrepute, women walking in the night. When it happened to Susan Magara from the middle class, right? Then women realized it's not just prostitutes and roadside food sellers and mentally ill people and people who are involved in witchcraft or selling of body parts, etc., etc. When it became a national women's issue, the state took us seriously. I remember organizing women from across our political parties, across our education levels, across our income status. And the only problem was it was Kampala-based women that I was able to mobilize. And the first thing for me is all Ugandans have to be responsible, maybe not accountable, but responsible. It has to become non-gendered, it will involve all genders, non-partisan, but also region for me is important. Many people are saying, those Bagandas. And so I think when APA is mentioned, when Terego is mentioned, when Budu is mentioned, it's important we make it about the entire geography of Uganda, because that time it was women, this time it's NUP, we don't know who will be targeted next. What Museveni has specialized in is fragmenting the country, dividing us up. There's a time it was religion. Those Muslims, the Salaf Muslims who were being targeted. And many of us thought, right? But I think it's important that the discussion becomes about Ugandan and Ugandanness. And also generation, it's now a bavuka banupu, right? I know men who are older than even myself, who were abducted just around the period of the elections. Men who are too ashamed to talk about their crushed genitals, because among men, we don't talk about those issues. It's very shameful, right? So when you say to me, who is to be held accountable? Before we hold the state and the state apparatus accountable, we must call all Ugandans to order, right? We must shame fellow citizens and nationals and residents, but also citizens in diaspora, citizens by, I don't know how, that the laissez-faire attitude, the I don't care attitude, the it is them, not us attitude is not advancing the cause. It has to be about all of us. If I cannot speak, maybe I can sign a petition. If I can't sign a petition, maybe I can spread the gospel. If I can't spread the gospel, I can retweet or do whatever it is that people are doing. Solidarity and amplify and publicize, give visibility to the issue. Who to blame? You can Museveni. When the rain doesn't fall, we blame Museveni. When we are constipated, we blame Museveni. When our men can't when they can't erect, we blame Museveni, because the entire psyche of Uganda has been put where it is by Museveni. If state organs, security apparatus, UPDF, the army, UPF, the police, LDUs, I don't know what they are, SFC, but also all these paramilitary outfits, Tomorrow there'll be a new name, right? There'll be a new name. ISO, SO, JTCC, FFU, the entire spectrum of armed personnel who are employed to do this by the state are responsible. But before we blame Yoweri Museveni and the NRM party, because his party should call him to order, right? NRM should call the chairman of the party, the president of the party, whom it has entrenched in power and it propagates and repropagates. NRM, partly to blame, particularly those who have access to him and cannot call him to order.
Stella, do you think
Yes.
the NRM that has people that kneel down for Museveni, the NRM that has people that clap even when he's snoring, can bring to order the despot?
They can deny him their vote. They can. Yoweri Museveni came to power through treasonous means. He shot his way. When there was a sitting government, he committed treason to come to power. The bulk of his power is from his party, and his party, the strongholds in his party were soldiers with him in the bush, right? They can speak to him. I believe they can speak to him. And I think if it's a partisan conversation, none of the other parties can bring Yoweri Museveni to order in terms of dialogue and discussion and counsel and wisdom, as NRM can. Those elders in NRM who were with him at one point, they can talk with him. But he's a military man. So who is accountable? The gun is accountable. Firing is accountable. Bullets are accountable. Who is empowering our army to do what it does? Who is empowering our police to allow themselves to have leaders who are military people? Who is empowering this? Why doesn't Parliament play its role? I think the entirety of the organs of state which should be functioning are to blame.
Okay, I would like to bring in Safina. Thank you very much, Stella, for that. Safina, Stella thinks that NRM should bring Museveni to order. He thinks that his party is responsible to bring him to order before Uganda.
Among other institutions. I mentioned quite a number of them, but I think that we cannot forget the role of NRM. We have forgotten that they can play a role.
Yes. Safina, I want you to jump onto what she just said, please. I think you are muted. Karim, would you want to jump onto that? I think we're having a network situation with Safina.
Yes, I think to add on to the question you posed, that who should be held accountable. I think I would agree with Stella holding Museveni accountable, because he has admitted to some of the atrocities. For example, I remember, I also bring back Susan Magara when she was murdered. I think the parents said that he had got a call from State House letting him know where the whereabouts of the body of the daughter was. And that was a call directly from State House. So the State House cannot run away from accountability for the murder. Also, Joan Kagezi, Justice Joan Kagezi, said, "Oh, I know who killed Joan Kagezi. I don't know why they are not arresting. I don't know why they are not arresting him." The same thing happened when more than 100 NUP people were killed in November. He said, "Okay, I know we killed some were violent and others were not, but we shall." He has not held anybody accountable for that. So we should push the government to be accountable for the murder and the killing and the killing of our people. We cannot.
I'm sorry, Karim, but I find it lay, for lack of better word to use, to say we should push the government that is not allowing people to demonstrate, the government that Stella ran away from, Stella and the hundreds of others that are in Nairobi, that we should push for them to bring this guy to account. So
I mean, it's it's a multiple pronged way of calling for accountability. For someone like me who lives here in Washington, D.C., it is incumbent to me. It's duty to make sure that I let Museveni know that we are about to pull the plug on him. I will let him know that we shall call for global sanctions for him and the people around him who have been at the helm. I think that is another way we can hold them accountable. We can have targeted sanctions. We can, do visa restrictions to those who have been abusing human rights. We can also withdraw funds. We can call for withdrawal of targeted funds or have Uganda funded differently, not directly through the government, but through the civil society. Those are some of the things that we can do to hold the government accountable. Not only can we go on the street, but also us in the diaspora, say those who are able to speak out, those who are in spaces where you can stand up and call out to the relevant authorities and your leaders and policymakers, places where you live, call on to them to speak out on the ongoing human rights violations in Uganda. Those are some of the things we can do. We cannot just put it in the hands of Ugandans who are not allowed to go on the street. Actually, it should be us in the diaspora, in spaces where we can speak, to give Ugandans that courage, to let them know that we have your back. When by the time you make the decision that you're peacefully going to protest, we have pushed for this. We have pushed sanctions. We have pushed for withdrawal of targeted funds. That is the back that we can give our people. But if we don't have it, if we don't have the countries where we're living speak out, it will be very hard for me to convince a Ugandan that put your body on the line when I'm comfortable here in Washington, D.C. I have to make sure it's my duty to make Washington, D.C. uncomfortable on behalf of a Ugandan who is in Kampala, who wants to stand up. I want them to be strong by the time they hold that placard, knowing that, you know what? Okay, we have this letter that was written by Korebuka, Senator Korebuka, and Ranking Member James Rice that is calling for sanctions.
Karim, before we head into the sanctions, I want to bring in Safina. I think she's now back. And
yes, I remember the question you had asked me earlier.
I want you, as you remember the question, also to one of the most famous quotes about torture and killing and kidnap, I think, came from the late Muhammad, ASP, who said, "When you speak, you die. When you don't speak, you die." So I want you to start on that, please.
Yes, some people think that the ongoing human rights violations will not get to their door because they don't engage in politics. Like earlier, Dr. Stella put it, when women were being killed, a lot of men did not speak up, either due to misogyny or because they were safe in their spaces as men, and they didn't think it important to talk on issues involving the femicide of these women. And so people feel safe when they see these human rights violations as categories. They think, I will never be affected by that. I cannot speak on that. I shouldn't be speaking on that because maybe that will lead me to being tortured or kidnapped or abducted or that sort of thing. And people tend to relax and let these things go by unquestioned. People would rather talk about trivial things. People would rather use their platforms to discuss trivial things than talking about these issues involving the lives of people. And I think as long as people feel these things cannot happen to them, as long as people think they are safe, which none of us is safe in this country, these things are not going to get the attention they deserve. And it has to start with us. It has to start with everyone feeling that we are not safe. When fishermen in Kalangala are being killed over fishing, market vendors should also know that there's going to be a time when it will be them. When people in mineral-rich areas like Mubende are being murdered for their little pieces of land because big men think these pieces of land have the gold that they want. People in other areas in like Kamuli or anywhere should also be affected by this, because today it's this group of people and then tomorrow it will be you or someone you know. People tend to actually wake up when these things happen to people they know. Like when someone goes to the police station to report a crime and they are manhandled, then they wake up to the reality. They wake up to what's really happening. But people should not wait for these things to happen to them or to their own before they speak up. That's what I think. I think we should take this head on and handle it with the urgency and with the urgency that it deserves, with the seriousness that it deserves, because this is our life. These are lives of people. Today it's happening to someone else. Tomorrow it will happen to you, wherever you may be. There were men who were abducted because I think they were found with some documents and they were abducted over documents were abducted. One was killed. They didn't wake up anticipating that this will happen. But when a country does not respect human rights, when a group of people doesn't respect human rights, and that's why I want to bring up the issue of saying that NRM should hold the president responsible, self-proclaimed president, because he's not, that they should hold him responsible. NRM, they don't care about these things. They think the end justifies the means. They see these things as okay. They don't care. They don't care that people are being abducted, that people are going missing, people are being chased off their little pieces of land by these strong people, by these big men. They don't care. So I don't think NRM has what it takes to hold the president accountable, the self-proclaimed president accountable. They can't.
Thank you
and
very
most
much.
of them are actually afraid of him.
You don't think they have, Stella would call them the balls to
Yeah, they don't have the balls to do that. They do not. They can't, and they won't, because it works in their favor. As long as people do not have a voice, as long as people are suppressed and oppressed, it works in NRM's favor. They get away with these things. So it works in favor of the entire NRM. It doesn't work in Despot Museveni's favor alone. It works in all of their favor. And that's why most members of the NRM, some that I used to interact with on the internet, I don't anymore because they are really vile people.
Thank you very much for that.
They see these things as non-issues, so they cannot do anything about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Safina, for that. I'd like to bring in Stella. And as a person who has been kidnapped, one of the sad sights for me is when somebody is picked on the streets. I know Safina has just been saying when the people in the market are being tortured or ambushed, those on Lake Victoria should also protest. But Ugandans are always bystanders when something is going on. They eagerly watch, videotape what's watching, but don't do anything. So, and still as a person who has now left Uganda. How can we get Ugandans more involved to demand for their human rights?
Right. So thank you, Ishmael. Four quick bullets. I'm shooting back. So the first thing I want to say is that as an organizer, I believe I'm very, very optimistic. I always see every murderer as a potential convert to nonviolence, right? As an organizer, I never say I cannot speak to that group of powerful, privileged people and they can't change. And so I have organized protests where we needed money, and we approached women in the NRM who said, I can never be seen publicly with you. I can never be seen publicly with you, but have this money, go and buy water, right? And so the struggle cannot have all of us on the streets, but we can get things from those privileged others that we assume don't have children. I know an NRM young man who was shot on 18th November. We all know the story that not only NUP or opposition people were shot down, right? And so people are seeing the impact of this torture. I mean, Safina, we can't say let us make people aware and let us bring the torture in their faces, let them be part of the discourse, and also say these people are welcome, but these ones are not welcome. I think we should preach the revolution to everybody, including Museveni, even his wife and his sons and everybody, even those who defile our country and defile our women and castrate our men. We must preach to them because there's always hope. That's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to say was in response to the question about the diaspora, where Karim made an important but quite I can contest what he said, that it is us in the diaspora who are going to do this. Yes, you have a role to play, and I'm thankful that you are organizing and mobilizing. But Uganda is going to be changed by Ugandans in Uganda. Okay? However risky it is, we must encourage fearful Ugandans to keep squeezing, however scared they are. They have to be part of the struggle, and we have to find ways of emboldening the most frustrated, of organizing in very difficult circumstances. If we give up now, we have to encourage those in Uganda to keep resisting. It's difficult. I ran away because I thought, look, I have kids. I have a life to lead. A dead soldier cannot fight from the grave. But I'm going back because I feel that our duty to country must be played mainly by those in the country, because Yoweri Museveni is doing things to the country. His arrogance allows him to say, I don't care if the visa is taken away from me. Of course we know he cares because he has a lot of offshore accounts, right? I know that the diaspora can do many things. I also know there are many things the diaspora can do, right? They can support the struggle, but the struggle has to be internal. So to go to the question about bystanders, which was, because I've lost the third point, but to go back to the question of bystanders.
I think the question of bystanders goes right into what you are talking about. How can we get people to say no, to demand the end for this? I know we saw this in Sudan, where a 20-something-year-old girl, it took a lady who was in her 20s to encourage the country to stop despot Bashir. So how do we stop, or how do we encourage Ugandans to stand up for themselves?
Right, and I think the first thing is to ride and amplify what Safina said when she says, oh, Musawan Nakaiza said, she said, to keep showing people how it matters, that it's not just an opposition issue, it's your issue as well. It's your child, it's your doctor, it's your lawyer, it's your shoe shiner, it's a Ugandan, it's your neighbor, right? And for me, I have seen that the role of those who may not be the vilified immediate person is important. Mothers, grandmothers, fathers, wives, mourning people, right? I attended Rita Nabukenya's vigil, although she was in NUP and I was in, I think it was People Power at the time, but the picture of her children, her orphaned children, appealed so much to me as a mother who has children, right? And I think that the first thing is the witnesses, the everyday witnesses, putting varied faces to the struggle, and those who have been at the forefront of this, but also showing it's ordinary Ugandans. It's the woman in the village who's saying, "Where's my child?" It's the child who's saying, "Mami aliwa." It's and sharing these stories and humanizing them away from our fragmentations. We are very divided as a society. If we can come together, I mean, it was bread. I think in Sudan it was bread, right? We need that thing to make it a thing that is about all of us. This paining body is about all of us. I don't know what's going to unite us as Ugandans. I'm looking for that one ingredient that will allow us to go beyond the divisions. And maybe we can be united by our fear. I don't know. I thought that the drones and the image of the drones would unite us, but that has failed. And I think the drones are problematic because I haven't seen women being pushed into a drone. And so those voices are missing. That narrative is missing. My story about my kidnap was in a car at night and the men were masked. My story went to the UN. So again, the limitations of diaspora. My story went to the UN working group against arbitrary detentions. And they even gave a position, a ruling, and they found Uganda really wanting. And Uganda has never responded. Never responded. We can make these petitions and statements and declarations, and Uganda can ignore us. But I keep wondering, what if we had local, I don't know what local alternatives we have to these bodies that can make statements. And so UHRC, Uganda Human Rights Commission, is as important as NRM. But I think that we have organs there. CSOs are as important as NRM, if not as implicated, because many of them rely on the NRM and the government to give them registration. The media is getting, the traditional media, newspaper, radio, and TV has really been penetrated and corrupted already. So how do we get the involvement of other Ugandans? I think we share the stories, we keep talking, and I think we have to keep calling people to the streets. What other spaces do we have? What other spaces do we have? It's dangerous, it's deadly, we're going to die. But we have to keep going to the streets. I've been to the streets. I'm not fearful of the streets. I live quite recklessly and maybe dangerously, and maybe not everything that I can do can be done by others. But I think to keep insisting, if that mad woman, they call me mad because I believe in nude protests, if that woman can go to the street and get away with it, right? We have to normalize resistance and protest, because what other spaces do we have for political participation now? The sort of discussions and panels we have been domesticated, because the language of discussions and panels is a language that Museveni conquered a long time ago. Policy documents done, lobby advocacy done, right? The language that he fears is the language of the masses saying to him, right? And I think that because it's effective, he's refusing it. The discussions we have are important. People have said to me, people just talk and talk and talk. Yes, we talk. If talk was not important, why did he banish Vimeza? We used to have a Vimeza, right? And I think that spreading the word happens through Vimeza. Your webinar is a Chimeza, just that it's happening online. How do we get
an international Chimeza?
Ekimeza tewali byanywa na byakulya naye kimeza of sorts, because we have to keep engaged.
Thank you very much. I want to bring in Karim at that. Karim, what Stella's made a couple of things that we need to do. She has really taken us into the history. She has taken us round up to her point. What more do you think we can do to make people get out on the street and demand for the change? And to stop the kidnap, because if you watch the few videos that we watch online, people just stand by as other people are being pushed into the drones. So, Karim, please.
All right. I think one of the the biggest challenges that our people are facing, besides lacking a common aspiration, when we go to the street, who is our audience? All the institutions are under captivity. So if all the institutions are under captivity, if I go onto the streets, which we really need to, in Uganda, is the judiciary going to hold the junta accountable? No, under captivity. Is the legislature going to do it? One of the most, it has become a useless institution now. It is not only in captivity, but also accomplice, because if you look at an institution that takes almost the biggest chunk of Uganda's budget, and it's not willing to stand up. I understand that most of them are NRM, but we need a coalition of the willing to first of all shrink it. Going back to the issue on what can we do to have people on the street. One, we need to have a common aspiration. If it's the health sector, what is it that Uganda, beside the killing of our people, that we have in commonality? Like, okay, I'm going onto the street to get this, to get justice.
And Karim, the aspiration, what I'm hearing is something that unites Ugandans. But if you go today in Uganda, there are parties going on, people have weddings, those who are in bars are going in bars. It's business as usual, but there are things that are happening. So how do we show these people that just like bread, just like you took bread for Sudan, what do we need for Uganda? Probably you don't have the answer for that, but what do you think we should do to get all those people out from?
It is the common aspiration that I'm also looking for, because there have been so many instances where, you know, people have just been dumped by Mulago Hospital, where we get our comrades from the morgue who have been tortured. We get them from the morgue when they are still breathing and get them out and trying to find, you know, treatment for them. If people are not willing to look at that as a spark, I am hesitant of saying that I have a silver bullet of what Ugandans can, of what we can tell Ugandans to do for everyone to get on the street. But one thing I'm sure of, the regime can fool people, but it won't take so long. It is going to take so many people to be aggrieved from different places, like Safina said. If market vendors are standing up, or if people from Iseka market, you in Nakasero market, you have to stand up, because the next day it is going to be on you, until we recognize that this is a collective burden of all of us as Ugandans. We will not, because some people can still afford to go to the bar and drink. Some people can still afford, you know, to go to Mulago and pay privately and get services while walking over other people who have been, you know, in the line and not getting services. So we have lived 35 years of no functional institution. So most of our answers are we haven't seen a government that fully functions for the people. The government that we've been having for the last 35 years functions for a few. And I think we have to some extent normalized that. That's why it's really hard for somebody in Kampala to stand up when something happens in Jinja, or when something happens in Mubende, somebody in Mbale, to stand up, because everyone is waiting until it comes to their door.
Until it comes to their door. I would like to hold you on to that, Awan, and read very quickly some of the comments we have in here. The accountability should be this walk. Somebody thinks, Stella, you're running away from the tortures and kidnapped. I think you've tried to answer that. Mary thinks we need to unite, just like everybody says. Julius here says, I think Julius is trying to write down a couple of things that Stella has written. And then Salongo too says, thank you, Stella. Your insights are brilliant ideas. You have given us a roadmap. And somebody saying, yes, the spark we're looking for is already here. people are tired. We are going to take only one phone call because we're actually out of time. But I'd like to, my very last question before we take the question from Subuga, Massachusetts, would be straight to Safina, and then Karim, and then lastly Stella. Are we ready for, and is Uganda really, can Uganda take another 5 years of dictator Museveni? Is it worth to do that? And before that, maybe I'll bring in Subuga to ask his question. And Subuga, please, if you can unmute yourself, please. I think Subuga cannot talk. Safina, the next, do you think Ugandans should go for another 5 years of despot Museveni?
No, we can't. We cannot go another 5 years under this dictatorship, and we shouldn't. I think most people are saying, even in the comments you read, people are suggesting that we should hit the streets and protest, which is true, which is right. But there are also other means of protest that we can employ. We can start employing right now. Like, for example, boycotting businesses belonging to Museveni and his group of people. They have businesses, they have establishments that people can boycott if people really mean what they say when they say that they are tired of the dictatorship. Museveni has malls. His wife has malls. Why do you keep going to their malls? Why do you keep supporting their businesses? If you're tired of them, why do you keep taking their money to our tormentors? Why do you keep giving them your money when in turn they are giving us nothing? They're giving us nothing except bloodshed. So that's one way that we can put forward how we feel. I personally understand that people are a bit timid and people are ready to protest, but the spark is not yet there. A lot of things are happening, but that spark, it's not yet there, and it's going to take I don't know what it's going to take for us to really hit the streets, but we can start with boycotting their businesses. And in the meantime, we can organize and support organizations that working towards fighting the dictatorship. Like, for example, there is an organization called the End Museveni Dictatorship. It has a Twitter handle and it's also on Facebook. It's EMD Mutual Aid. People can donate to this organization for a start. Museveni has businesses. Don't buy Buto from his Fortune Buto. He has a company that makes soap and all those things. Don't buy from them. Let us not give him our money and we see it for a start, because that's peaceful. We are not going to the streets. He won't shoot us, but we won't give him our money. I think we can start that way and progress, organize, and work our way to the street protest, because the people in Sudan organized also. They did not just wake up one day and hit the streets. It took a little bit of organization for it to get to that level. So we have to begin small and work our way to where we want to be, in the streets. That's where people want to be.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Safina.
Yes, thank you.
Karim, in 1 minute or so, another 5 years of Museveni. We have 2 months to a swearing in. Is Uganda ready for that?
No, and it shouldn't be. We shouldn't even be comfortable with the thought of having Museveni for another 5 years. And to echo what Penas just said, yes, we need to boycott. We need to start boycott. But the streets, and more prudent. That's where we should be heading. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, common aspirations. We can't say, you know, oh, tomorrow it's Karim on the street. Let us watch him. We are watching him with these 5 people. Oh, what happened to him? Then the next day it's gonna be Stella. Oh, that's Stella's group. Let us watch them. And until we all have that common aspiration of what we envision, it might be hard for us to crack it in the next 2 months, but we really need to do it. We really need to bring all actors on board, all hands on deck. We shouldn't leave anybody behind, regardless of their political aspiration. This is not an opposition political party fight. It's a fight for liberating our country. It shouldn't be left for one party while the other ones are on the side. Everyone should do whatever they can to make sure that we end this dictatorship.
Thank you very much, Karim. Stella.
Right. So boycotts work. I believe in boycotts. Boycotts are also very classy, very exclusive, very elitist. I take my kids to private primary school in Uganda. When we were told to boycott primary education provided by the state, I couldn't find a single private school provided by opposition. And so my kids stayed in private school because the private school they were going to was run by the junta. So boycotts work. If we say we boycott buying his milk, we need alternatives for those of us who depend on milk. And so boycotts need organizing, which brings me to my emphasis. I've been insulted 1,000,000 times, and I don't care. We need to unite, period. If we don't unite in the next 2 months, Museveni will rule us for 5 years, right? No one is going to do it alone. I keep saying we need to unite in spite of the difficulties of porcupines hugging porcupines. NUP, I will work with you if you're going to work out Museveni. It doesn't matter. I'll work with the elderly, with the young, with whoever is working. And I think we need to mobilize. Whatever it is, even going to the street stake organizing. You don't just wake up one morning and say, to get to street. Science, Munji. If we get arrested, who will bail us out? Who will bring food? Who will drive us there? What is the spot? How are we working with the police? All these things take organizing, right? And so I think, at the risk of sounding like the insane person I've been called, I totally believe that Ugandans can come together in a matter of 24 hours. We can do a lot of hard work coordinating, because a person has been asking for the spark. We are tired, right? To the point of insanity, to the point of leaving home, to the point of homes breaking up, to the point of pointlessness. And it's a productive season. It's a productive season. If we don't unite all the aggrieved around a common cause, get me that one common cause, I will come and work with you, right? But it can't be a single journey. We've got to organize. It's beyond just one cluster of people or individuals or whatever. It's going to be cross-national, getting all the people involved, interested in Uganda together, in diaspora and exile and home, in the village, and everyone has to get involved. And it has to be beyond the institutions and the organizing we already have. That is why, for me, we have to return to the people power movement. The people power moment, that moment in history is important. The parties have served us, right? They served us well. Don't put them aside. But we need a unifier, something that's going to unite us the way that people power did. I am yet to find a unifier that worked. It worked across all classes. People power worked with everyone. It was welcome, and you couldn't pin it down to one single entity, because it was for all of us who believed in the liberation struggle, who believed in the fight for freedom. So Karim and Musa and Ishmael, take us back to that moment, whatever we do, or maybe something similar, a unifying soul that will explode and take us to freedom. I don't know what it is. But when you get another, please share, because I'm desperate for freedom.
when you get an answer for the unifying capsule, we will definitely share. Thank you very much, Stella, Dr. Stella Nyanzi, from somewhere in Kenya, for logging in. Thank you very much, Musao Nakaiza, Safina Nakaiza, from somewhere in Kampala, logging in. Thank you very much, Karim Tambi from Washington, D.C. area. And for myself here in Massachusetts, I would like to say a very big thank you for Stella for making the time, for Karim for making the time, and for Safina.